Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Semoto Podcast. Today we go international. We go to my native country, Italy, with Carlo Giuliano from Pixlex, one of our first member in the ecosystem from Italy. Welcome, Carlo.
Hi, Marco.
Thanks a lot for
Thanks
taking the
having
time.
me. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. So me and Carlo, we've been knowing each other for a while, but Pixlex is a fairly new company. So tell us more about Pixlex. What do you guys do?
Yeah, sure. So we are essentially a law firm. We are vertical in technology. We love technology from different angles. Of course, one of the main things that we cover is, of course, Web3, but not only. In general, we like to put on the table the fact that we understand technology. We breathe technology every day. We cover mostly startups, so we work a lot with startups, both assisting founders and the investors. We also, some of us do have some little startup projects ourselves, so we know what troubles
What is
founders
needed?
face. That's something that we usually see that is appreciated from our clients because they know that we understand them. We know what they go through. We also cover Web3, as I said, different. Web3 is a very large industry. There's different types of initiatives that we assist. I think we will go deeper into that later. We also assist gaming and esport projects. This mostly because we are gamers ourselves. I'm a crazy gamer, so I love to work in that industry. It is an interesting industry. In Europe, it's still a little slower if you compare to Asia, for example, but there's interesting projects in Italy and abroad. We also, of course, work with AI, which is something a little new. It's not me personally, so I like that field, but I leave it more to colleagues. And of course, in general, we assist tech projects. Last but not least, we are working also on the Italian and Chinese commercial relations. We have a Chinese lawyer. We have partnerships in China. So we have been working with a few Chinese clients now, and we are making like a bigger effort in order to grow in this.
That's quite interesting. Tell us more about that. Why this angle specifically with China? Do you see many connections, much business going through in between Italy and China, or?
In general, there's few aspects. The first one, I'd like to say that I want to do things that I'm passionate about, and I have a big interest for China. I've been learning Chinese for a while now. I have few Chinese friends. I speak a little Chinese. So on the one side is something that we are, at least me, I am passionate about. But on the other side, of course, we saw a commercial opportunity. It's really recent news that our Prime Minister was in China. They are making now a bigger effort in restarting that kind of commercial relations that were already on, and then they were somehow suspended for some time due to more like geopolitical issues. But now it's growing. We've been seeing investments from Chinese companies here in Italy as well. In my region, for example, now in Piemonte they just announced that they will move a new big factory for electric cars producers from China. But we also have a lot of Chinese entrepreneurs here in Italy.
True.
And on the other side, small and medium enterprises, which are the backbone of Italian economical ecosystem.
The Venetian with Marco Polo started commerce with China, so
Yeah.
it's only normal that Pixlex continue on the same footstep as Marco Polo. Fascinating. So let's go more into the technicality of what Pixlex does, so our audience can understand the advantages and why to use you guys. So it's beautiful that the core is startup support, because those are the people that don't have the large budget. Those are the people that really need to be guided by hand. So great that you do that. So as a law firm, what do you specialize? Is it incorporation, asset recovery, litigation, all the structure of the business? Tell us more.
Yeah, of course. I think first of all, there is an important element of the general approach that we want to have. So we want our clients to perceive us not only as lawyers, but more as partners. So of course, this doesn't mean that we are not shareholders of our clients' projects, but we want them to perceive us as that kind of people, or this kind of partners that they can rely on when building their products. Usually, and this we don't usually deal with litigation. We usually assist projects that are at early stage. So of course, there's an incorporation part, the initial actions that you need to do to start a new project. Sometimes this includes incorporation. This almost always actually, but sometimes we start a little before, so people come to us with an idea on how to structure a project, and then we assist all the structuring part that usually includes more regulatory aspects, especially when you think of really regulated industries such as Web3 or on certain levels the gaming aspects, or data protection and all these kind of industries where there's a high level of regulation, which is quite common in the tech field. So we usually, what I like to see is that we get our hands dirty, as we say in Italy, on the product development. So we usually assist. We become partners of the founders or the product owner in designing the product in a way that is compliant. This is what I like the most, because it's not just a lawyer's job, but it's a lawyer's job that kind of get mixed with product design and product development. We usually get along a lot with IT guys, so software development companies and these kind of people, because we like to understand the technology behind and try to use our legal knowledge to provide some insights on how you can build your product in a way that, from a commercial standpoint, still is advantages. It's not only lawyer's job is not only saying you cannot do this, you can do that, but it's more like, okay, let's get on that angle, and then you can do what you would like to do in a way that is less effortless, or there's less effort that you need to put on it, and then you can commercially get more advantages, like less costs or this kind of things. So
and that is a great advantage that Pixlex has compared to other law firms out there, because not many truly understand the tech element, while you guys, as you said, you work closely with the IT department, with the product development department, so you really bring the view of the legality aspects and what it needs to be done from a regulatory point of view to develop a specific piece of technology. And I think is even more important for gaming, because probably is something that they don't tend to consider, while there are plenty of aspects that need to be kept in mind. Let's go back to that later on. I would love to dig deeper. Maybe you can give us some advice to the founders in the Semoto ecosystem, what they should consider. Maybe you can draw a roadmap for them of the legal consideration. But you're the first fellow Italian that I have on my podcast. So I would like to actually talk about Italy, the bel paese for a second. Please tell our audience your view about the Web3 ecosystem in Italy. And then there are a ton of new rules coming out specifically in Web3. So what is it changing in Italy at the moment?
Yeah, of course. You probably know as well as I do that Italy is kind of a controversial country this meaning that on the one side it's old-fashioned. There is still high use of paper, for example, in the public administration. There's in general, all what relates to public services is a little slow in introducing technology. If you compare to, I don't know, Estonia, for example, or I have also good connections with Eastern Europe due to personal and professional life, and I see that those are younger countries in a certain sense, so they can implement technology in a faster way. Italy is a little slower in that, similarly to many big Western countries, like countries of Western Europe. But on the other side, there's a good energy in innovation in Italy. There's a lot of projects that somehow are either initiated in Italy or they are initiated by Italian people abroad. Even in the Web3 ecosystem, if you think about Tether, for example,
Absolutely.
there's Italians behind that, right? So, and that's just a big name, but there's also others. So we are facing a market where there's this, you can feel this kind of energy even from like the bottom level. So even if you just go to any Web3 event and you speak with founders, you can see that there's this kind of energy. On the other side, that's where I see personally the opportunity for a lawyer. There is the legal, in general, the law and in general, and the lawmaker and the regulatory bodies, and in general, all what relates to the public administration still are understanding slowly what this industry is really about. So I think it's important to find a way to assist innovators to interact with a system that is still trying to understand how innovation works. You can see that in several aspects, even when you think about the incorporation of limited liability companies here, which are usually the legal structure for startups. Then you have a relevant role of the notary, which is a person, that is certifying the incorporation. So a relevant role of the notary and the register of companies that still makes it a little bit. How can you say, like there's a huge level of formalities if you compare to other countries, like I mentioned Estonia before, where you incorporate a company online with a couple of clicks, So there is still a lot of space for innovation, but we're getting a little slower with that. On the other side, the market is particularly interesting, in my opinion. On the one side, due to the energy that you can see, there's a lot of projects, a lot of willingness to innovate. There is a lot of space for innovation because there is a lot that we can innovate. But also, it's a country that has a general high number of rich households. So there's a good public for products. There's a good amount of people that can actually purchase and can actually invest in products. You can see that, for example, in the VC field, in the venture capital field, in the startups field. In general, the early stage rounds are usually targeting private investors, family and friends, business angels, because there's a good level of private
capital.
wealth.
No, I do agree. I do agree
Investment
with you.
funds maybe are a little slower. So that it could be an opportunity on
That's an interesting point to bring to the public, because a lot of startup tend to go straight for the VCs, while they don't understand that having a good core of angel that can back you is equally important. And I share your view. I haven't been based in Italy for a long time, but I share your view. I think it's an ecosystem that is thriving with innovation. We, as Semoto, we personally know plenty of startups run by Italians, either in Italy or abroad, as a lot of other aspects, and this is not the forum to discuss Italian problems, but it can be slowed down by bureaucracy and exactly figures like notary that add complexity. But probably that is the important part that a company like yours plays in the space, because for a foreigner in particular that might want to do business with Italy, the complexity, the intricacy of the system can be scary. So somebody like you is fundamental in playing an important role. So tell us more. I mean, when it comes to regulator, CONSOB, Banca d'Italia, so how are they viewing Web3 and blockchain, and what is the current stage of the legal ecosystem in Italy? For a startup that wants to set up business, what are they going to face?
Yeah, I think when you think about Italian regulators, okay, let's start. First, I will start from, in general, a general consideration about Italian regulator. It is, especially Bank of Italy, it is considered in Europe as a really like a regulator that is somehow a little tough, but on the other side, it's, how can I say, maybe reliable in the meaning that is a regulator that it's the standing of the Italian regulator is a high level in general in Europe. So I think this is a good point to start. It's a regulator that is not allowing you to do whatever you want, but so it's a little strict. But on the other side, if you're licensed under in Italy and you're supervised with one of the Italian regulators, in general, there's a good level of supervision, so you can that's good standing, let's say. Okay, so starting from this, I will say that during the years we saw, especially CONSOB, going a little tough on crypto projects for some years without understanding really how the Web3 works and what the advantages of blockchain and crypto products are. But now it's changing. Now I will say that if you speak with either Bank of Italy or CONSOB, you have in front of you in general, especially when you go to like the executives, then you see that they understand now what's about. But there's, again, we said Italy is a controversial country, so there's a level of controversy in the meaning that on the one side, the bad aspect, we just saw a few months ago the head of the Bank of Italy making an important, like a public statement that had a lot of echo, that was somehow warning from Bitcoin as a means of speculation, so on and so forth, which on the one side I can understand it can be true. On the other side, I would say it sounded a little bit like a political statement that was, how can I say, not putting the entire Web3 industry under the proper and light, especially if you consider that now there's new regulations entering into force. So I will say that kind of statements belong a little bit more to the past and to the era where there was complete no understanding of Bitcoins.
There is still a lot of
Nowadays,
scaremongering from people that are not in the space
yeah,
for sure.
I mean,
But you're right. I mean, MICA,
yeah,
there are regulation
I
affecting
personally,
Italy, making it a safer ecosystem for everyone, right?
absolutely, I personally think Bitcoin has proven already that it's not just a scam. It's something much bigger, and it's something much more important than just like a means for money laundering or scamming. So on the one side we have this, like this, but that's more like a political level. We see this kind of statements. On the other side, Italy has implemented interesting laws for example, the fintech sandbox. So the possibility for startups, for projects to interact on an informal level with the regulator, whether it is CONSOB, Bank of Italy, IVAS, so the financial regulator, the banking or the insurance regulator, to interact on an informal way and then apply for the possibility to develop a product that is going to be regulated supervised under one of the regulators, but to develop in a lighter version and experiment in a sandbox environment. This is something that maybe if you think about Switzerland, we have also some experience with Switzerland, and we see for them it's pretty normal that a startup can just contact the FINMA and have some sort of interaction. In Italy, this is a big thing. It's a bigger country, so of course you cannot have this kind of direct interaction that you can have maybe in Switzerland, Luxembourg, all these kind of countries that are a little smaller. But so this is already, I would say, a sign, a practical sign from the regulator that there is a possibility to understand together a little bit more about these products and engage, and so I will say there's again these levels of controversy. How is it changing? I will say that the main changes are, this is my personal opinion, of course. Some colleagues may think different, but I will say that the first thing is that there's a better level of understanding of this technology than a few years back. So now there's a possibility to talk about it a little bit more than a few years back, when it was seen just as a speculative, as a means for speculation. And there's of course new laws entering into force, mostly due to the European Union actions on MiCA regulation, DLT pilot regime regulation, and DORA regulation, and all these new regulations that will apply to crypto projects.
Have you seen anything specifically done by the Italian government towards affecting the Web3 ecosystem?
Yeah, I will say, for example, if you think about tokenization, I've been working now on an interesting tokenization project that will be announced, I think, this autumn. Like we are seeing that Italy introduced a new law that fintech decree is called, from last year, that is the Italian implementation of the DLT pilot regime regulation. In that decree, the Italian government went a little farther than what the DLT pilot regime was foreseen, with the intention to try to offer a way to substitute the register of companies for the stock companies, to substitute it with the blockchain. So under that decree, now you can incorporate a stock company in Italy and issue the stocks directly on blockchain. There's still some formal parts. So anyway, you need to have a person, a company typically, that is authorized as point of contact for the supervisory authorities, and it's ensuring that blockchain has the specific level of technical features that will allow it to be as an alternative to the company register, but still somehow you can start to create something new. The downside of it is that it only applies to stock companies. It does not apply to limited liabilities companies. So for startups, this become.
And is that a program run by Borsa Italiana, the stock exchange, or is separate from them?
No, in that case, the origin of the problem, and I think it's a very interesting aspect from a legal standpoint, at least, is that it is difficult to align these new technologies with traditional corporate law. Corporate law is something that is much older. Our civil code is from 1942. So now we have a different understanding. In this specific case, for example, the reason why you cannot, as of today, you cannot tokenize limited liabilities companies under this regime is that traditional corporate law understands limited liabilities companies as having quotas that are not they're not made out of stocks all with the same value. So there's not a number of stocks with the same value that is part of the capital of the corporate, but they are made out of quotas, and a quota is not divided into elements of the same size differently than stocks. So I can own 50% of a corporate, you own the other 50, but they are not made out of stocks. So you cannot tokenize that as of now. And there's also other aspects that are really technical, but the idea is that the way traditional corporate law says limited liability companies is incompatible as of today with the new fintech decree that is allowing for tokenization. There will be changes, maybe. Unfortunately, the lawmaker in this specific case offered the opportunity to CONSOB to extend this law also to limited liability companies, but this is more a job for a lawmaker. I personally believe CONSOB will not extend the application of this new decree to limited liability companies because there is changes and amendments that need to be done in the corporate law. So from a corporate law standpoint, that only the lawmaker can do. So as you see, there is a level of innovation, but on the other side, it's a little.
That is fighting with an old system. It's
with an old system. Yeah, I believe this is common in many countries, not only in
Italy,
absolutely, I guess.
Absolutely. What I wanted to ask you,
about in
Carlo, sorry to interrupt you, because I think, and it's quite important, we are experiencing something interesting. I think that finally the Italian government has realized that is losing talent. A lot of other companies, startups in particular, are setting up in more friendly jurisdiction. Portugal has been attracting a ton of talents, a ton of different companies for the last several years, mainly because of tax treatment and a friendly ecosystem, as we said. Now, let's not get into tax advantages because it's nothing to do with your business. That's probably for a next episode with a tax expert in Italy. But we are finally seeing the government try to be more startup friendly. And we have, as Semoto as well, we have received a few questions, even from foreigners, asking what is the ecosystem now in Italy and what they should expect. So without touching the tax element, but what is the ecosystem like at the moment? What are the regulatory requirement draw for us a picture of what are the steps that an entrepreneur in Web3 that he wants to relocate his business or start it fresh in Italy will have to face?
Yeah, I start saying that while the tax advantages for traders are particularly important, we have some clients that move to Dubai, which is now probably one of the most interesting hubs for crypto traders that want to pay less taxes. While this can be important, I would say it is not the only element, and for sure in the future it will be less and less, because when you want to launch a project, then there's not only your personal tax that you need to consider, there's the general ecosystem, so the general possibility to connect and have network with other projects, with investors and so on and so forth. There's a public, if you launch a project from Dubai, after all, it's a small place. Generally, project target European customers, because there's a high level of, in general, people are the average European is richer than average citizen of other parts of the world. So it's an interesting location, let's say, to target, for your project. And there's also a lot of other elements. In general, as an innovator in Italy, what would you need to expect, in my opinion, is on the one side, if we think about the ecosystem before the law, the ecosystem is quite interesting. There's a good opportunities for networking. There's a lot of events. This autumn, we'll see a lot of events, especially in the area around Milan, but not only. So there's a good level of networking. There's good connections between Italy and Switzerland, for example, mostly due to the fact that the Lugano area is interesting for crypto projects and is really close to Milan. So there's a lot of exchange between these two areas. So I would say that if you come to Italy, especially if you come in the northern part of Italy, you find a lot of projects in the Web3, a lot of founders, a lot of understanding of Web3. So there's a good opportunity to connect. And also there's institutional actors that have been starting for a few years to invest, understand the technology. I think, for example, Banca Sella, it's a bank that is particularly interested in the innovation. They even have some verticals in the Web3. They have I remember a program for it's called Metaverse for Finance, so a program for acceleration for crypto projects. I personally know some startups in there, and they're really interesting. There's also other actors that are somehow investing time and effort in the Web3. So the ecosystem is becoming quite interesting, both for founders and for investors and for institutions as well. If we think about the legal part on the other side, I think now it's becoming, for a few years there was a really high level of uncertainty. I remember when we were working on crypto projects, 3 years ago, which is not a long time, it's just 3 years. But I remember, for example, the NFT bubble. Understanding what these NFTs were from a legal standpoint was particularly complicated because there was no law. You need to apply the old system that we talked about to new to new products. I mean, this is not only in Italy. I think it's news of today or yesterday. I don't remember, but there's been a hearing in London, in UK, to a proposal to give a legal qualification to digital assets, because traditionally in UK you have proprietary assets.
As of today,
So the all sorts. they are also asking themselves, what are these assets? And the same issue, they had it in Germany, they have it in USA. If you think about all the SAC against Ripple, and for years in UK they are asking, in USA, sorry, they're asking themselves, is this a security or not a security? So we had the same issue in Italy. Now we are enjoying, as the other European countries, a higher level of legal certainty due to the new regulations. So MiCA, for example, is drafting somehow clear limits, a clear perimeter of what a crypto asset is. It is not 100% clear, because if you think about NFTs, for example, they can fall within, they can fall in the scope of MiCA, or they can be outside of MiCA. So this really depends on the single asset, but in general, we are starting to see more legal certainty, and this is interesting for innovators. I will say, an innovator now can come to launch its project from Italy, knowing that in general there's a higher level of legal certainty. The regulator has some laws to refer to, doesn't need to apply all the rules. There's actual new rules like MiCA, and there's an Italian law on the implementation of MiCA that is bringing some really interesting, we can go deeper into that, but really interesting innovation and aspects that will really help innovators, in my opinion. So I would say now it's much more interesting than a few years back.
No,
Absolutely.
For sure there is more clarity, and that's thanks also from the European intervention. But at country level, for example, tell our audience there is a specific list that you need to subscribe to in order to be a registered VASP in Italy, and that's specifically for Italy. How is it called? How does it operate?
Yes, as of today, there is if you operate as a VASP in Italy, you need to register. It's not an application, it's just a registration. Mm-hmm. It's for anti-money laundering purposes. Italy is really tough on anti-money laundering rules for obvious reasons. We have an important history of organized crime, so we know something about that. So this registration is for AML purposes, and requires it's really easy. It's you don't need to have a specific legal structure. You can be just a small startup, and you don't need to have a governance structure that is particularly heavy. And so there's on the cost aspects, it's not particularly an issue, a particular issue. It's just a registration, and then you need to do the reporting to the authorities on the transactions that are happening on your platform, if you, for example, operate as an exchange. But this requirement is probably going to fall apart once the MiCA is entering into force in relation to the CASP registration. In that case, when MiCA is applicable to CASPs, then you most likely will need to register as a CASP under the MiCA rules, and then operate under that registration, so under that license. The MiCA require CASPs not to register, but to apply for license, and it's of course much more complicated than the current rules that are applicable in Italy. In general, MiCA and then of course the Italian the Italian law for the application of MiCA require CASPs to obtain a license that is really similar to the ones of investment firms. So the regime is somehow was inspired by the MiFID II regime and by the banking regulations. So all those regulations that already apply to to supervised entities such as banks, payments institutions, and so on and so forth. So this, if you want to operate a CASP in Italy, it's in general in Europe, it's becoming something that require a more structured governance. So it's more complicated, in my opinion, for small startups. But on the other side, this is meant for consumer protection. So the idea is that as a consumer in Europe, you will know that if you are interacting with an exchange, this exchange needs to.
We can probably end on that as a message for the audience, because we always emphasize it, like a stronger regulation is not a bad thing at all. People that go offshore preclude themselves to that level of transparency for their investors and trustworthiness that they can get if they actually set up shop in countries like UK, Switzerland, the whole of Europe. It brings a level of comfort to your investor and your clients. Carlo, thank you so much for giving us a great overview of what's going on in Italy. I'm glad to see that the ecosystem is opening, is moving on, and the regulator are supporting it. And as a proof of this, we see a company like yours that are stepping up into the game to support a new wave of startup coming into place. So obviously Pixlex is listed on Semoto, so everyone can approach you. I'm going to post your profile, your Semoto profile on this podcast. So if you have questions related to how to set up in Italy, or if you're running a business in Italy and you want to enter the Web3 space, Carlo will be a great point of contact for you. Carlo, thank you so much for taking the time, and we hope to have you on another podcast, because we haven't covered your expertise on gaming. So hopefully you will join us again.
Thank you, Marco. It will be a pleasure. It was a pleasure today, and it will be a pleasure next time. Can't wait for it.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day. See you.